Hi, I'm Vrinda. The Prime Minister is on an interview spree. For a PM who has set a world record for not facing an actual open press conference for a decade now, one would say that this is indeed an interview spree. In the last 1 month alone, he has attempted 4 interviews. One of these includes a chat with Bill Gates. This week, he also participated in an interaction with professional e-gamers, just what we were missing. But what are these interviews and interactions telling us about the last 10 years of his government? Is there anything there that is not already known to us through the countless press releases, posters and banners of the government and the BJP? Anything that the godi media channels have not already told us on primetime debates? Is there any difference between these curated interviews and the PM's rallies? Are the interviewers challenging the PM in any way? So how should we read these interviews, which are again likely to increase in the coming few days? Well, the answer is not blowing in the wind. The PM's interview with Newsweek has received international praise. The associate editor of the Financial Times termed this piece as stenography. The South Asia correspondent of The Guardian said that this was not an interview, that this is a Modi press release. To be honest, they aren't far from the truth. The Newsweek interview begins with a disclaimer that should have prompted the editor of the magazine to not call this thing an interview in the first place. The article says that the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi addressed Newsweek's written questions and followed up with a 90-minute conversation at his official residence with Newsweek. Written questions for someone who has been in power for a decade and who has a far longer career in politics? Why write the question when you are meeting the PM himself? Isn't written questions the same as a scripted interview? It's like appearing for an exam, but all the questions are already known to you. Could the PIB press release not have served the purpose of fulfilling this PR exercise? Besides the 2 editors, the president and the CEO of Newsweek, Dev Pragad, was also present for this so-called interview. Why was the CEO needed at the interview of a political leader? We don't know, and I guess we will never know. We don't know if there are actually any questions asked during the 90-minute long conversation. At least, the interview doesn't show any such question. The entire piece consists of long paragraphs where Modi is talking about his government's achievements. There are no questions on the burning issue of electoral bonds, a scheme that the government introduced, made thousands of crores out of, defended vehemently in the court, and which was finally declared as unconstitutional by the Supreme Court. For 8 years, the PM and his party benefited from an unconstitutional scheme. Today, the BJP's political machine runs on the funds received through these bonds. It was a scheme that enabled systematic corruption, intimidation and the misuse of central agencies to favor the ruling party. A scheme that blatantly tilted the scales in favor of the BJP and adversely impacted any financial balance that might have existed between the opposition and the ruling party before the scheme was introduced. 3 people from Newsweek sat across the table from PM Modi, and not one of them could muster the courage to ask him a single question on electoral bonds or on the opposition's persistent allegations of the misuse of investigative agencies. The headers under which the PMO's essays are printed read so: on democracy and a free press, on religious minorities who complain of discrimination, on the status of women, on the India-China border dispute, on Pakistan, on the significance of the temple at Ram Mandir which Modi dedicated himself, on his legacy. Religious minorities who complain of discrimination? The Ram Mandir that Modi dedicated himself? Are these questions? I mean, they themselves prompt the PM to say nothing of any significance. There is no mention of the protests in Ladakh, no direct questions on the trampling of minority rights, the fact that female wrestlers protested for months and were not listened to, that women were paraded naked in Manipur and continue to live in terror in the state. A state that he has chosen to just not visit. There are no questions on the stifling of the press and independent media. It's another matter that the interview itself is proof of the fact that there is no mainstream independent media. There are no follow-up questions on the issues of unemployment or inflation. Honestly, there are more follow-up questions in cricket award ceremonies. All that this interview tells us, the reader, is that the PM is not answerable to anyone, also because there are no questions to be asked of him. Now to move on to another interview where apparently questions are asked, but under the surface, do they serve the purpose of questions at all? This is the Prime Minister's interview with Shashi Shekhar of Hindustan Times. The headline of the interview is "Corruption Hits All, Action by Agencies Won't Stop." The report adds that in the interview, PM Modi goes on to defend the action of federal agencies and blunts opposition charges. The front page of the Hindustan Times has published some highlights from the interview as well. The PM says that he is committed to acting against the corrupt and that strengthening the family was the Congress's priority. Shashi Shekhar does not ask the PM to speak on the fact that he has joined hands with people like Ajit Pawar and Praful Patel, both of whom he has accused of corruption and nepotism, Parivarvad. The journalist asks a broad question on corruption. He doesn't even ask a targeted question on the allegation of the opposition regarding investigating agencies. At least it is not mentioned in the interview. The PM himself makes a note of the allegations that investigative agencies overwhelmingly act against the opposition, and he goes on to dismiss them by saying that only 3% of the cases being probed by the ED are associated with politics. There is no follow-up from Shashi Shekhar about Deeptiman Tiwari's report in the Indian Express, which showed that 95% of all political cases being investigated by the ED since 2014 are against the opposition. There are no questions from Shashi Shekhar on the issue of electoral bonds, on the issue of the Ladakh protests, on the situation in Manipur, on the freezing of the Congress's funds right before the election, of the arrest of 2 CMs of the opposition bloc. I'm not even talking about the answers that Modi gives to Shashi Shekhar, because what can one really expect from a leader who has made an active choice to not face the press openly and democratically for 10 years now? But this is your misfortune and your misfortune alone, that those who got the chance to take your questions to the Prime Minister, to those in power, chose to not do so. That they chose to indulge in PR exercises that reveal nothing to even the BJP's own voters. This is the world's largest election, but also the most uninformed election you have ever seen. Till next time, this is Vox Vrinda.